Hey, what's going on, everybody? Tonight we are going to talk about the Thorn Trilogy. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's live stream. You'll notice I look a little different. I'm usually always wearing a hat, and I haven't shaved. So I actually had to go into the office for the first time in a while this afternoon. So I did my hair up for once, and I said, "Hey, screw it. Let's go without a hat today." Because I'm so used to just throwing on a baseball hat. So yeah, look a little different. Still me. Don't worry. But tonight, what I wanted to do is I wanted to focus, at least for the main part of the stream, on the Thorn Trilogy. The reason for that is because I feel like it gets kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit, especially recently, and rightfully so. You have the OG Halloween, which obviously we're always going to be talking about. It goes without question. It's a lot of people, myself included. It's our favorite horror movie of all time. And then, Halloween 2 is what I consider the best sequel in the entire franchise. And then recently we've had, Halloween 2018. And even before that, we had the zombie remakes. So the Thorn Trilogy, as much as some of us love it, some of us loathe it, it gets kind of lost in the shuffle. So I wanted to focus on that. So that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about 10 things I actually like about the Thorn Trilogy, and then 5 things that I don't like about the Thorn Trilogy. Yes, we're going to try to be a little bit more positive than usual until we get to a certain point. Just because we're getting so close to Halloween, I can't believe October is actually, halfway over already, just about. It's just insane. So that's exciting and sad at the same time. Especially for me who lives in Wisconsin, and that just means winter is coming and I can't stand the snow and the cold and all that shit. So I just kind of want to prolong October as much as possible. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into, and I'll talk briefly about each one, but I'm going to go into 10 things I like about the Thorn Trilogy, and then we'll talk about the 5 things, or some of the 5 things that really bother me about the trilogy. So number 10, and these are kind of in order. Once we get towards the top couple, those are definitely in order. But other than that, it's just kind of 10 things that I like about the trilogy. But number 10 is I have memorable Halloween 4 side characters. I'm talking about, Reverend Sayer, who is it Sayers? It's Sayer, I think. Reverend Sayer, who's just, he's in one of the movies. There's a franchise with 12 movies, and this one guy pops up for how much screen time does he have? 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and he's still someone that we all know. His story, or not his story, but we all know his lines. We know the scene. That's just classic, memorable character right there. Speaking of someone that's not in the movies very much, is Wade. I mean, just one line sums up. You can say "fuck off, Wade" to someone on the street. They're not going to know what the hell you're talking about. You say "fuck off, Wade" to a Halloween fan, they're going to smile. I'm like, oh yeah, So it's just classic. And then you got Brady, and even Dr. Hoffman, who is kind of an antagonist. Kind of not. He's not a bad guy. He just thinks Loomis is off his rocker, and kind of rightfully so at that point. We don't know what Loomis has been, going off about every Halloween for 10 years since 1978. So maybe he's been saying the same thing to Hoffman all the time. And, he's never right. We just happen to see when Loomis is right. So even Hoffman, who's not, like I said, he's not a bad guy, excuse me, but he's kind of a memorable character in his own right. So that's number 10, memorable H4 side characters. And as I'm doing this, if you guys want to in the chat, include some shit that you like about the Thorn Trilogy or don't like, we can get into all kinds of stuff like that when I'm done here. All right, so let's get into number 9. Number 9, I have in Halloween 6, going back to Smith's Grove. The reason I liked this was Smith's Grove plays such an instrumental part to the OG Halloween and basically, the entire franchise, just because that's where Michael spent those 15 years where Loomis spent 8 of them trying to reach him and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the speech. So going back to Smith's Grove, in my opinion, was pretty damn cool. And it's one of the creative decisions in H6 that I actually like, just because it kind of in some sense brings us back full circle. I mean, what happened at Smith's Grove, we don't need to get into that quite yet. But going back there, the creative decision to go back there, I thought was excellent, and I really enjoyed that. Speaking of Halloween 6, number 8, I have bringing back Tommy Doyle. I thought that was another good move by the writers of this movie. Is it Daniel Farrens? Was he the writer, or was he the producer or director? I can't remember. I think it was Daniel Farrens, but correct me if I'm wrong. But bringing back Tommy Doyle was a cool decision. If you think about it, H6, what took place in 95. So it had been 17 years since Tommy Doyle experienced, that fateful night in 1978. So he's kind of at a cool age, probably 25, 26. Maybe Tommy was a little older than that. So even if he's in his late 20s, it's a cool age to have him kind of be obsessed with Myers. Paul Rudd's performance, obviously, I know some people like it. I'm mixed on it. I don't know if sometimes I enjoy it just because it's Paul Rudd and he's kind of become, this classic, not great actor, but famous actor, especially in comedies. So I don't know if that's why sometimes I kind of enjoy his performance, but overall, I'm not a huge fan of his performance. But bringing back Tommy Doyle, I think, was a smart move. All right, number 7 is going to be someone that was in Halloween 4 and then Halloween 5, and that is the introduction to Sheriff Ben Meeker. I don't know about you guys. I made a video earlier this month where I listed my favorite law enforcement officers, and Meeker was number 1. And for good reason. How can you not love Meeker? Even if you like Brackett better, that's fine. But Meeker was just a fantastic character, just a different type of sheriff. The line that one of the rednecks says, if Martians landed on old Ben's door, he'd just spit once and get himself a shotgun. It's just classic. And, when he gives Brady the gun, he's like, don't have time, maybe I should explain this to my parents, Brady says. And Meeker says, don't have time, get up there. Didn't have time to explain it to his parents, but Meeker still had enough time for a second to, tell him, you grew up my daughter, I'll use that shotgun on you. So just fucking classic scenes there. Meeker's great character. Unfortunately with Meeker, man, they killed him off in such an anticlimactic and just terrible way for a classic character. I mean, everything about it. We'll get into that. Okay. So we're doing what I like. I start thinking of H5 and bad things happen. All right. Let's get into number 6. So number 6 is going to be something they continued from the earlier Halloween movies, and that's going to be creative, memorable kills. All these movies from Halloween 4, Halloween 5, and Halloween 6, yes, even Halloween 5, I said, have some memorable kills. Halloween 4, you got the thumb in the forehead. You got Kelly Meeker with the shotgun. You got Earl's kill. Even going to Halloween 5, just the fact that Michael uses farming equipment in the farm. He uses the scythe. I think that's called a scythe. Is that what it is? And then he uses the pitchfork. It was a very autumn, October-ish tools. So yes, I did enjoy the fact that he used some tools like that, even in H5. H6, a lot of memorable kills too. You had John Strode, who I know Jake Blaster Productions in his video had that kill in his top 10 list. You guys should go watch that video. It's a good video. But yeah, the John Strode kill. You had the Halloween 6 massacre at the Smith's Grove in the operating room. One of my favorite sequences, even though it's so out of touch with the OG Halloween. It's so out of touch with that. But I still like the scene for what it is. It's a cool massacre scene. So creative kills, which kind of continued on from Halloween 2 when they really upped the ante on the kills and shit like that. All right, number 5, I have, and if you're just joining us, I am doing 10 things I like about the Thorn Trilogy, and then I'm going to do 5 things I don't like that the Thorn Trilogy gave us. But number 5 on the things I like is going to be more classic Loomis speeches. Halloween 4, I've said this before, and sometimes I know some people think I'm crazy with this, but Halloween 4 has my favorite version of Dr. Loomis. At this point, he's not crazy yet, but he's seen this shit before. He's warned people before and nobody's listened. So now he's not walking up to Sheriff Brackett saying, I'd like to have a moment with you. It's important. And, just slowly, talking about how he knows Michael's evil and things like that. He's not just, casually talking like I am now. He's walking in the police station. 6 bodies, Sheriff. That's what I've seen between here and Richmond. A filling station in flames. I tell you, Michael Myers is here in this town. He's here to kill that little girl and anybody who gets in his way. So you got that speech, which is classic. You have the scene at the gas station, which is more classic Loomis. It's one of my favorite daytime sequences in the entire franchise. Is Loomis is in the gas station. He sees a body. He checks the phone, or he sees 2 bodies. He checks the one phone, and the line is kind of cut. And then he kind of he's almost like he senses Michael is standing all the way down there, and he's like, Michael, and Michael's standing there with his bandages. He starts kind of pleading with Michael. He's like, don't go to Haddonfield. You want another victim? Take me, but leave those people in peace. Please, Michael. Pauses for a second. God damn you. And then he shoots, and Michael's vanished, right in front of his eyes. Similar to the laundry sheets with Laurie, where Loomis there was no cut. He didn't blink. All of a sudden, Michael's gone. So, just that whole scene, and, he comes outside of the gas station, and, he's kind of looking around. He's like, he just yells, Michael, and then obviously Michael comes out in the red Jeep, I guess. It's not really a Jeep, red pickup truck, I guess you could call it. And it's just fucking classic, and dives over, just classic Loomis speeches, especially in H4 and even in H5. It's not the best version of Loomis we get, but he's got the classic line, I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew hell would not have him. As much as, I have some issues with Loomis in H5, which I'll get to, that line alone makes Loomis being in the movie worth it. So I love that. And even H6, obviously, and by the time we get to H6 with Loomis, he's an old man. Donald Pleasance aged big time in 6 years between 89 and 95. Or I guess technically it'd be 88 to 94, because I assume that they filmed these movies like a year before they came out. But Donald Pleasance really aged. All of a sudden he's got a big, great beard, and things like that. But even in that movie, just because it's Loomis, we get some good lines. I always crack up when Barry Sims is talking on the radio and someone calls in and they say, what about is Dr. Loomis? I heard that old quack, drop dead or something like that. And, like Panda Loomis, and he was not dead, just very much retired, and it's just, you can see that he's kind of made peace with the fact that he's done all he can, but then he gets roped into it again. And, he's happy to see Tommy again. And, he even kind of, he even admits to, what's his face? Dr. Wynn, I don't want to do this alone. He's just had it at this point, but because he is Loomis, he has to try to stop Michael, so it's just, we get more classic Loomis, which continued obviously from Halloween 2 and Halloween 1. But it's almost sad to watch these movies, in my opinion, just because we're never going to get a new Halloween movie with Donald Pleasance, the Donald Pleasance version of Dr. Loomis again. Yes, we can go rewatch some of the older ones. Yes, Halloween 2018 was, for all intents and purposes, a pretty good sequel, especially compared to some of the shit we've gotten. But not being able to have Loomis again, just, there's an excitement level. So I will always be excited for a new Halloween movie. But if we had a new Halloween movie and somehow, I mean, I know it's impossible, but somehow Loomis, like Donald Pleasance, was in it, like my excitement level would be even higher. And I know it'd be the same for a lot of people, but Loomis is just so great. So I just wanted to say that, the more classic Loomis speeches, that was the number 5 thing that I really enjoyed about the Thorn Trilogy. All right, number 4 is going to be the introduction of Rachel Carruthers. Look, Rachel is a fantastic character. She was so different than Lori. She had some qualities that were kind of the same, as a final girl, but she was different in the fact that she had to, yeah, Lori did too, kind of, but she had to be more of a protector to Jamie than Lori had to be for Tommy, because Michael was after Lori. I mean, I know technically he wasn't after anyone, but at this point he's going after Lori, and Lori, could shove the kids in the closet, which, Lori was protecting them. I totally get that. But Michael in these movies was after Jamie, which we'll get to in a second. So Rachel had to take more of a protector role, and you really saw that in the rooftop scene, mainly because, she kind of basically is willing to sacrifice herself to save Jamie, which we saw earlier in the movie. She didn't even want to babysit Jamie because she'd rather be hanging out with Brady, so you kind of saw a little bit of an arc there in Rachel. So Rachel's a great character. I loved her introduction in the Thorn trilogy. Obviously, I do not like the way they killed her off. Ellie Cornell would agree with me, even though they originally wanted to shove a pair of scissors down her fucking throat. They still took a piece of glass. Is it glass? No, scissors. I think it's scissors. Maybe it's glass. Correct me if I'm wrong. And took it right to her midsection or right to her shoulder area. But just terrible. That whole fucking scene's god awful. But anyway, Rachel as a character, her introduction was awesome. So she's at number 4 on the things I liked. Coming in at number 3, you guys better check my temperature here. I am about to praise H5 again. But number 3 is going to be the tense and creative laundry chute scene from H5. I don't know if any other horror movie has done a similar scene. I'm sure that they have, but I have never seen another scene where a killer is chasing after a little girl and she kind of goes in a laundry chute. And as many issues as I have in H5, that was a tense ass scene, when Jamie's kind of hanging there and, Michael's trying to open it. And then you get the cool camera shot of her falling down, boom, down to the bottom. And then you get the, tense moments of her there and, Michael stabbing the bottom of the laundry chute and, her having to climb back up. It was a cool scene, which is not something I can say a lot of for Halloween 5. So check that off my list to praise H5. But yeah, I really enjoyed that scene. So that is number 3 on my list. All right, 2 more things I liked about the Thorn trilogy. We're going to get into 5 things I don't like, and then we are going to get into the chat and answer your guys' questions for a little while and talk about anything you guys want to talk about. So my number 2 is the seasonal Halloween atmosphere all 3 of these movies have. Halloween 4, look, I can't say that without starting with the opening credits of Halloween 4. In my opinion, and I know there's a lot of people that'll agree with this, in my opinion, there has never been anything done that has captured the fall Midwest autumn atmosphere like that. From everything, they had, and I'm going to miss some here, but you had, I think was it a mailbox? But anyway, it's like a mailbox with like a skull kind of on it. You have, all the leaves changing. You have a tree with like a ghost hanging from it. You have, a tractor, a little barnish area. And while they're doing it and the credits are playing, whatever score they have going on, it's not the Halloween theme, but the score just has a sense of dread to me. Just so well done. And then even later in H4, right before the scene when Loomis walks into the police station to explain to them what's going on, you have a bunch of kids running around at dusk and people are throwing toilet paper in the trees. That is just classic late 80s, early 90s, like Halloween things that happen. Anyone that grew up in that time, kids are running around throwing toilet paper. Everyone's running around in costumes. There wasn't as much safety factors as there are now. It's not that it wasn't unsafe or anything, but it's just times are different. And that just kind of brings you back to that atmosphere. Even H5 again, had some atmosphere-ish stuff, like I said, with Michael, with the farming equipment, and then just the whole tower farm, kids going to a Halloween party at a farm. That's built a little bit of atmosphere. Not much, but enough where it can kind of continue the theme of having that fall autumn atmosphere. If you look at the tower farm scene, where kids are kind of partying, compare that to Halloween H2O when Josh Hartnett and Michelle Williams and all them are in the basement having their own little Halloween party. I know it's only 4 people, so it's hard to compare, but picture the atmosphere of Tower Farm versus that. Which one feels more like Halloween? For me, and maybe you guys disagree, but for me, it's Halloween 5. So I really like that atmosphere. And H6 also has great atmosphere. It's one of my favorite parts about this movie. When especially the scene that first comes to mind for me is when Tommy's walking at I don't even know what you call it. It's like some type of event where the whole town is together, and Miss Blankenship is giving the speech about the Samhain and the goblins on All Hallows Eve and shit like that, and then even ward off evil spirits and shit like that. And they cut to Tommy, and he's got his hands in his pockets, and there's barrels with fire in them. Just great fucking atmosphere. So yeah, all the seasonal atmosphere of all 3 of those movies are something I really enjoy. And then number 1, probably my favorite thing about the Thorn trilogy is the introduction of Jamie Lloyd. So how should I say this? So after H2, they kind of wrote themselves, or Carpenter kind of drunkenly wrote them into a corner where Michael's going after his sister. So I'm not technically the most creative person in the world when it comes to coming up with ideas for movies and stuff like that. But for my money, they had a couple of different options. They could have had Michael, go after Jamie Lee Curtis again. I'm sure she said no. Or they could introduce another family member. I think introducing a child, Laurie's child, was genius for them, and because it really kind of brought a different dynamic to the franchise. Obviously, Jamie Lloyd was she 7 years old in Halloween 4? I know she was 9 in Halloween 5, which makes no sense because only 1 year passed. But just bringing that dynamic of Michael going after a child just brought a different dynamic, like I said, to these movies, and it was really cool. And say what you want about Halloween 5, but Danielle Harris's performance in both of these movies was classic. She did a fantastic job. Even when she was mute, maybe she was kind of annoying, but for the most part, she was not annoying like you get with some child actors. And it's hard to think about this, hard to remember this, but Jamie was actually in Halloween 6 too. Just a different actor, J.C. Brandy, and just they did her character dirty, just like they did Rachel dirty. I'm not saying that those characters shouldn't have died at some point. Every character should die when they have run-ins with the shape, but just the way they did it was just wrong. But anyway, those are the 10 things off the top of my head, or kind of a list I made earlier today of things that I like about the Thorn trilogy. So now I'm going to get into 5 things I don't like about the Thorn trilogy. Let's start right off with number 5, and that is going to be Loomis's descent into madness went a little bit too far for me. And what I mean by that is, how should I say this? He wasn't as likable as usual in Halloween 5. Basically, he kept getting in Jamie's face. Even the nurse had to say, stay away from the little girl, or what'd she say? Leave the little girl alone, Dr. Loomis. He just went too far. Even, using Jamie as bait. And it's like at the end of that movie, when Loomis grabs Jamie at the bottom of the stairs and he's like, "You want her." It's almost like they're trying to make you think that Loomis is gonna give her to Michael to stop all the killing or whatever. And obviously he set up the trap with the giant net or whatever, but he just descended a little too far into madness for me. But I get it. He saw this in Halloween 1 and 2 in 1978. He saw it 10 years later, and then nobody's listening to him. They could never stop him. So I get the dissent, but it just went a little too far for me. And kind of going off of that, in Halloween 4, when they shoot Myers into the mine shaft, they get back to the Carruthers house, and Loomis says Michael Myers is in hell, where he belongs. And that's it. So Loomis goes through all of this. He fucking blew him and Myers up at the end of H2, and Myers came back. So he's going to believe that Myers is shot and down a mine shaft and not go down to the mine shaft and make sure that Myers is dead. Obviously, they wanted to just put an end to it so they could get to the amazing ending, which I failed to mention. And the things I like about that was Halloween 4's ending. That's on me. But yeah, so some of the Loomis decisions just went a little too far for me. So that's number 5. Coming in at number 4, this is just general, but having 2 cuts of Halloween 6 is just a fucking joke. There's so many production issues with Halloween 6, which at this point we all know about. We all have access to both cuts. I remember had to be the late 90s, early 2000s. It was well before social media. There was something called the Ultimate Halloween Message Board. And then that message board was actually bought out by the official Halloween website, and they changed it to the official Halloween message board. Do you guys remember message boards, before social media? It's crazy to think about. It wasn't even that long ago. But anyway, so it's called the Ultimate Halloween Message Board. And I had never seen the producer's cut before. And that's all people were talking about, because at that point, people got bootleg copies of the producer's cut. And it's like, man, what is this movie? What is this? Like, what could be different? You heard all the rumors and shit like that. But having 2 cuts of the same movie is just embarrassing to me. That a big franchise like this could have so many production issues, and then just to put out a product, where H6 just kind of abruptly ends in the theatrical cut. It's just embarrassing to me. So I hate that about the Thorn trilogy. We can get into, things we don't like about Halloween 6 and the direction they go and shit like that. But it's almost like a choose your own adventure we're in right now, which is absolutely ridiculous. So the 2 cuts of the Thorn trilogy, the 2 cuts of Halloween 6, it's a joke to me. It's embarrassing as a Halloween fan. So I don't like that. All right. So if you're just joining us, I went over 10 things that I like about the Thorn trilogy. Now I'm in the middle of talking about 5 things that I do not like about the Thorn trilogy. And once I get through with those, we're going to get into the chat room and answer some questions and stuff like that. All right. So number 3 is, this is more general, but it's the multiple masks of these movies. All right, so obviously at the end of Halloween 2, Michael burned to a crisp, right? So obviously they have to get him a new mask. Well, okay, so he found one in a store. Fine. Lazy, but fine. I know he found one in a store in the OG. I know that, but okay, so they wanted to get him a new mask. God, that mask in H4 is bad. I know a lot of people say the H5 mask is bad. But for me, the H4 mask is absolutely distracting, and they're both bad. So having all these mask issues is just unforgivable to me, especially in a franchise like this. We have fan films now where they make good masks, and I know it's a different time. I know they didn't realize how important the mask was going to be, and blah, blah, blah. It's unexcusable. So going from H4, terrible mask, to H5, another terrible mask, which is supposed to be the same mask, remember, that he just was set in the hermit's cave or whatever. He's set in the hermit's cave, we'll call it, and then pick it up, and we're supposed to believe that's the exact same mask. Come on. And then all of a sudden he's got a new mask in H6. What the hell is going on here? I get it. We're supposed to, it's a movie. We're supposed to suspend our disbelief and just watch it. But for me, it's just so damn distracting, especially when you watch these movies back to back to back. It's terrible that they have all these mask issues. So that's my number 3. All right. Number 2 is going to be in general, the Curse of Thorn. This is the dumbest fucking explanation for Michael's evil I've ever heard. Well, almost as dumb as he had a terrible stepfather and grew up in a hick town with a terrible family life. All right, that's dumber. But the Curse of Thorn is dumb. Okay, I said it. I get that at this point, we are in the 6th installment and the 5th involving Michael Myers of a franchise. And the more sequels you make, the more you have to explain, the more questions that need to be answered, right? I get that. This is the best we could do, that there is some curse that appears in the sky in a constellation. And the quote from Tommy Doyle is, every time it appears, he appears. That's it. So you're telling me it appeared in the constellation in 1978, and then it waited 10 years, and it appeared in a constellation in 1988. Okay, every 10 years. Fine. Okay, fine. Nope, then next year, then it's a year later. Okay, that's weird. And then all of a sudden, it's 6 years later. Do you know how that works? Oh, God, just drives me absolutely nuts. Like I said, I get that there's got to be some kind of explanation. And I'm not saying that I have some amazing explanation for Michael's evil. I'm not saying that. But with the millions of dollars that have gone into this franchise, the fact that we just get a Curse of Thorn is ridiculous to me. I get that in H5, Dominique Gerard, our favorite person, we'll get into that in a moment. I get that they put a tattoo on Michael on his wrist. I get that. And they put a tattoo on a Man in Black's wrist. So I get that everything was, set up for them to fail in H6. But H6 actually got a lot of things right as far as like the atmosphere and things like that. So it really bothers me that they came up with the Curse of Thorn. Dumb. All right, number 1. What is it going to be? I'm sorry, guys. I couldn't choose. I had to go just Halloween 5 in general. I'm not going to go off on a huge tangent, but let's just quickly go through the list. And I'm probably going to miss some here because there are a lot. And I'm sure you guys will add some more in the chat here, especially because I know Mike's in the chat. So Halloween 5, we got Tina. You go from a likable character like Rachel to Tina. And this is nothing against Wendy Kaplan. From everything I've heard, she is great. But you go from Tina, her introduction to dun dun dun. I can't even do it. You go from Rachel to Tina. Absolutely awful. She's fucking annoying as hell. I know there are Tina apologists out there because I've said things about Tina and I've had people all over me. I get that. But I'm just going to say it. She's not for me. Okay? Not for me. You got that. You have the clown cops. Cops that are so dumb and so pointless that they put Looney Tune music every time they arrive. Like, we're supposed to, as an audience, not see that these cops are fucking morons. So right there, what they do by putting that music when the clown cops arrive or when the clown cops are there, what they do by putting that music on is they tell me as an audience member, I think you're a fucking moron, Nick, because you can't see that these cops are dumb. So I got to add this cartoon music. That is inexcusable to me. That Halloween 5, the producers and whoever cut the movie and whoever was in charge of putting that clown cop music is basically telling me they think I'm a moron. That's what I hear when that music plays. Okay. Speaking of thinking I'm a moron, the Myers house. I'm supposed to believe that Gothic mansion is the same house from Halloween 1 and Halloween 2. I'm supposed to believe that. No, Dominique Gerard, or whoever was in charge of the production design, said, oh, wouldn't this be cool? That'd be awesome. Look, it's got this gate in front. Look at the Gothicness of this house. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, let's have that be the Myers house. But it's not the Myers house. It looks nothing like the Myers house. It doesn't matter, man. The audience, this is a horror movie. The audience of this, they're morons. That's what they're telling me. Okay. Then you introduce a man in black, which in and of itself is not the worst thing in the world. Okay. Like I said, at this point, we're in the fifth installment and the fourth involving Michael Myers of a franchise. You have to introduce new things. You have to, because otherwise we're going to be sitting here bitching about the fact that it's the same old thing, blah, blah, blah. I get that. I'm a realist. Okay. But you introduce this man in black. You have him you show his boots, right? Getting off a train. You have him for some reason following Loomis into the Myers house when Loomis is saying, Michael, have you come home? And Loomis is, looking for Michael, but he doesn't see this man in a trench coat and a hat on him. So you have him following that. But the main thing you do is you have no plan whatsoever for this guy. We'll figure it out. Look, guys, I know that this has been said many, many times, right? I know that. I just have to reiterate it, okay? So you know that you don't have any idea who this guy is. Let the other people figure it out, right? And then you have him take what I can only describe as a fucking Tommy gun that hasn't been used since the 20s, or it looks like it belongs in Dick Tracy, and take out all the cops at Haddonfield PD, including, who I mentioned earlier, Sheriff Meeker, who we don't even get to see die. We get to see his body on the floor when Jamie goes in there in the police station, which I don't mind the scene of Jamie going in there. I think that's kind of eerie and creepy. But they just show Meeker in the background. The most badass cop we've gotten in this franchise. We don't even get to see him go out in a blaze of glory. Like, come on, bullshit. So the Man in Black, just awful. And then you make one of the most likable characters in the franchise, Jamie. You make her a fucking mute. Absolutely ridiculous. So Halloween 5, if you didn't guess that, is the worst thing for me about the Thorn trilogy. So let's see what you guys are talking about. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Maybe you guys like some things that I didn't like. Maybe you don't like some things that I like. So let's see where we're at here. Let's go up to the beginning here. All right. Let's see. All right, Michael Myers says Mikey was a funny character in H5. I knew he was going to say this. I know you commented, Michael, on some of my videos saying you're a big fan of Mikey. Look, he was written to be a jerk, and boy, was he a jerk. He's basically a teenage John Strode, guy that's obsessed with his car, obsessed with his hair, obsessed with his leather jacket. He's a funny character. I didn't find him that funny, to be honest. I found him kind of a nuisance. I get why some people like him. He's a little bit of a different character than we've gotten, a different type of douchebag. I like how Michael Myers was kind of watching him earlier in the movie, and he kind of saw that he was obsessed with his car. So that's why he takes that, is that a rake? It's some type of 3-pronged thing, and slaps it on the car. And slides it on his car to ruin his paint job. And, he knew that'd piss off Mikey. So I liked that Michael Myers was using kind of what he observed from the characters. I think that's kind of cool. But I was never a huge fan of Mikey. Not only was he a shitty guy, he just was terrible all around. All right, we got AJ in the chat. We got Jake Blaster Productions, The Shape 78, Ben Meeker. How's it going, guys? All right, let's see what else we got here. The Shape 78 says, I wanted to see Reverend Sayer and Loomis have a spin-off movie. They travel the country hunting serial killers. Yes, that would be fun. Imagine the conversations they would have in the car. Damnation. Come close a time or two, too damn close. Just Reverend Sayer's awesome. I am with you there. Let's see here. Byron Weaver, hey Byron, says if Halloween 4 and 5 had the Halloween 6 mask, the trilogy would have been better in my opinion. I actually agree with you there, Byron. The Halloween 6 mask, I do not mind. It is not even close to as good as the OG, and it's not even close to as good as Halloween 2018. But overall, I liked it a lot. I don't know if I like it more because it came after 4 and 5. But as far as quality of mask and trying to capture some of the spirit of the original, much, much better. Big improvement. All right, Ben Meeker's in the chat. He's talking about what he doesn't like about Halloween 5. He's got Tina, 50s, 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 50s. Oh, cops. Yep. Sorry, my cop lingo sheriff is a little off there. Mikey, clown cops, the hermit. Yep. And of course, Meeker's death. Yep. We are on the same page there. Norbit Rice, how's it going? Norbit says the explanation for Michael's existence, never cared for any of them. If they found out his adrenal gland was abnormal and he was basically a bull shark, that would land better in my opinion. Yeah, that would be similar. Yeah, I agree. Miles Swint says, hey, Miles says, what's up, Nick? Hope you're doing well, man. Can't stand H5 either. I am with you there. Jake Blaster Productions says, hey, watch it. Dominique is my uncle. Yes, Jake Blaster Productions and Dominique Gerard are very, very tight, if you guys didn't know. Very, very tight. And I know in the background right now, Mike is watching Halloween 5. All right, back to the crypt. Let's see what he's got going on here. How you doing, buddy? He says, do you think Meeker blamed Loomis for his daughter's death like Brackett did? That's a very interesting question. So, a couple of things here. We saw Loomis and Meeker Loomis mentioned this in Halloween 5 when he's saying that he's back. He's basically saying that he's back to Meeker, and he's, saying Meeker says something like, what, every time someone digs up a coffin, I have to call the National Guard. And he's like, how many people he killed last year? Your own daughter. And then Meeker kind of grabs him by the collar area and kind of doesn't throw him against the wall, but kind of grabs him and says, yeah, I didn't forget. And, Loomis is like, of course you didn't forget, but you never looked in his eyes, did you? See that nothing, no expression, nothing, and then gets into the, I prayed he'd burn in hell, blah, blah, blah. So briefly mentioned between the two. I don't see how Meeker can't blame Loomis a little bit. And the reason for that is, the reason Michael was in Meeker's house was because they found Rachel and Jamie and took them there. Obviously, they took them there because Michael took out the police station. So there's a lot of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here. And obviously, I think Meeker knows it is not Loomis's fault that Kelly was killed. But I don't see how you couldn't blame him a little bit. Now, does he have the same reaction when as Brackett? We don't know that because we didn't see the aftermath. We saw Brackett see Annie's body, discover Annie's body. And then we get you let him out. I didn't. I gave orders for him to be or to be restrained or whatever the hell he says. So that's a great question. I would say kind of, but we wouldn't know without seeing the immediate reaction like we saw with Brackett. Very, very fascinating question. All right. Ben Meeker says, John Strode crushing that bike in his driveway is such classic. Yippee. Yes, that is funny. He's John Strode. God, that is classic. The guy's drunk at work. They just really wanted to make this. I wonder how they decided to write this character. They were not subtle about making him be someone that we wanted to see die. Someone that was just a complete asshole. You make his wife a very meek old lady, and you have him basically yell at her over the phone. You have him slap Kara. You have him call Kara's son a little bastard. And then he's drunk at work, and he drives home drunk and hits the bike. Oh, just classic. One thing that does bother me speaking of John Strode, this is kind of about John Strode. But one thing that bothers me about a lot of newer horror films, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, or maybe I'm wrong on here. Um, One thing that bothers me about a lot of new horror films is I think that they make a lot of characters kind of like John Strode, where you want them to get fucking killed. They are such assholes that you want to see them die. And I know in horror movies since the beginning of time, especially slasher movies, there is always a character or two that is such an asshole you want to see them die. But I feel like in most modern horror movies, almost every death, not all of them, but almost every death is of someone that is an asshole. And I don't like that. I like to see a lot of nice and innocent people die in movies, obviously. Um, but I feel like, instead of having one John Strode in newer horror films, I feel like just 5 John Strodes in newer horror films. And that always bothers me. I just feel like it's kind of lazy, and you're kind of, instead you're looking for the audience to cheer along with it, which I get. It's a slasher film, but I like a little more subtlety in my killing films. All right. Shamika Sanders, how you doing, Shamika? Says, will there be a new Friday the 13th movie? Haven't been one in a while. Well, eventually, yes, there will be, but they are in court right now over the rights to it. So we don't know when that's going to end. And it depends on which news outlet you listen to. I like to listen to Shelley from Part 3. Yes, I said that right. I listened to Shelley from Part 3 about my news. And what I mean by that is the actor, God, what the hell's his name? I can't think of his name right now. Larry Zerner. The actor Larry Zerner is actually a lawyer right now. So he is really into what is happening, and he kind of updates the fans. But anyway, Victor Miller and Sean S. Cunningham are battling over who should get the rights to the Friday the 13th trademark and Jason and all kinds of bullshit. So as soon as they get out of court, which has been going on for, God, a couple of years now, I think we will get a new Friday the 13th movie. But the good thing is we have great fan films to whet our appetite a little bit. And I know it's not the same, but if you're a fan of Jason, Vincent DeSante and Womp Stomp Films has created kind of their new fan film franchise with Jason. It's called Never Hike Alone. And yesterday was a prequel they had come out called Never Hike in the Snow. So if you're a fan of Jason, check those out. They're really high production quality. When you say fan film, it doesn't seem like it's a fan film. It's crazy. Keith V. Hey, Keith says, how much better would Halloween 4 be if they used a great mask? As close to 78 as possible. H4 mask was awful. He looked better with the bandages on. Yes, the bandage look was cool. It would be a lot better in my opinion. Like I said, the H4 mask to me is just so distracting that it's hard to concentrate for me on some of the scenes in it. Sometimes it's lit well. There's certain scenes in Meeker's house in particular that it is lit very well, but the mask sucks. So I think it'd be a lot better. I'm surprised nobody has, what do they call it? Deep faked the 78 mask on Halloween 4 yet. I would love to see that. As far as the bandages for the whole movie, I'd be down for that. Would we be complaining about that now though? That's a great question. In an alternate reality, we could be saying, why would they use the bandages? Why? Put it this way. If they use the bandages, we wouldn't know how bad the H4 mask was. So we would just be thinking they would already be using a mask as close to 78 as possible. So it's kind of a catch-22 right there, but I'd definitely be down. I'm with you there. All right. Norbit says, right, the zombie remake did that with Trent. Zombies Halloween, that's literally every character. They're all dirtbag, greasy shitballs, but not Joe Grizzly, bitch. Joe Grizzly. But yeah, you're right. I'm with you there. Good point, Norbit. Greg Shepard, David Gordon Green Halloween or Rob Zombies? Which you like better? David Gordon Green by far. And like I said, I have a lot of issues with Halloween 2018. A lot of issues. No stalking scenes. It just didn't feel as much like a Halloween movie, Halloween season as I would like it to be. And then obviously Sartain and some creative decisions like that I was not a fan of. But I just hate Zombies writing so much. I hate how everyone's a hick hillbilly, blah blah blah. It's just old. It gets old to me. So to answer your question, Halloween 2018. Jake Blaster Productions says H4 is not without its problems. The mask, the explanation for how he survived the fire, and a few continuity errors. Yes, Mike, I know you have made some videos in the past, I believe, where you said, maybe it was on your watch along, where you mentioned that it's hard for you to get over the fact that both Loomis and Myers survived the ending of H2. And I agree with you there. I'm kind of decent at suspending my disbelief and just enjoying the ride. But I totally feel you there, especially Loomis. I mean, how did he survive that with just, some burns there, some burns on his arm? Yeah, just crazy. I'm glad they did. I'm glad they have Loomis. But yeah, I love the ending of H2 very much. It's time, Michael. I love that. And I think it's really just an epic way to end the character and the movie and that night in particular. So I'm with you there. I love the ending of H2. So if you think about it when you're watching H4, like really, like they survived that, especially like you see, there's a scene where, Myers walks out on fire, collapses, and then they pan into the mask and it's just fucking on fire. And at that point, there's no fire department there yet. So how long was he sitting there burning? And Loomis too, how long was he sitting there burning? I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they were going to, in H4, film a scene where they showed kind of how Loomis survived. Like he gets blasted like into another room or blasted through the door or somewhere. So he wasn't like burning the whole time. But they never shot it because of budgetary reasons, I believe. So yeah, I'm with you there, Mike. Ben Meeker says, "Hey, killing Bill Brown in Friday the 13th still hurts. One of my favorite Friday the 13th characters of all time." Who was Bill Brown? Was he the guy? Was he the comedian guy? I know he's one of the guys playing Monopoly, but I can't picture exactly who he was in the original Friday the 13th. I know the name. I don't think he was the prankster, so to speak. I think he was one of the other guys. But yeah, I have to look that up. Norbert says H4 wasn't nearly as bad as H5's mask. I don't know what the fuck that was. See, for me, I know that for most people, or at least from what I've heard, for most people, that H5 is worse for them. And I get that it's got the long neck and stuff like that. But for me, H4's mask, the definition is just collapsed. And I know why it happened. I get it. But for me, it's a little bit more distracting. But they're both fucking bad. It's just crazy. Ben Meeker says Brady went out like a champ in H4. Sasha was perfect for that role. Yes, Sasha Benson. No, Sasha. What the hell is his name? Sasha Jensen, I think it is. Yeah, Brady did go out like a champ. I made a video, earlier of some characters. I can't remember what video it was. I've been making so many goddamn videos this month. But anyway, I made a video where I basically stated how much I liked Brady. And the reason for that was he kind of has a redemptive arc because he starts out as a douchebag who's kind of cheating-ish, I guess. I don't know if him and Rachel are dating, but he's cheating-ish for all intents and purposes on Rachel with Ben Meeker's daughter here. And, so he's a douchebag. But then, he basically sacrifices himself to buy Jamie and Rachel some time. And you're right. He went out like a champ. He, he was basically, boxing, like in Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan. He's boxing Michael. But he died a brutal freaking death. Just the neck snapped like there and lifted up. So yeah, I agree. Brady did go out like a champ. Byron Weaver says, "Hey Nick, do you like Do any of the Halloween comic books will be official movies one day? That's one thing I do not know much about is the comics. I am not a comic guy. Um, I if I had one in front of me, I would definitely read it just because I will read anything about Halloween, the Halloween franchise that I can get my hands on. But I'm not a comic guy. As far as will they make any of them movies, that's hard to say. I wouldn't put it past them, especially if there's some good ideas in there. If they're not going to make a comic exactly like a movie, I would say that, maybe they'll look at an idea from one of the comics and say, hey, maybe we can add this into this movie idea that we already have. So maybe. Shamika Sanders says, are you a fan of Ghostface? To me, he's okay. Yeah, I like Ghostface. I'm not as big of a fan of him as I am of like Freddie, Michael, and Jason. So I'd put him probably in the next tier with like a Leatherface and Candyman and, people like that. But I like Ghostface. Ghostface is kind of a product of its time, if you think about it. In the 80s, we had Freddie, Michael, Jason, etc. And it was basically a time of slashers where it's, this indestructible person. So that's what we were scared of. Well, the 90s happened, and we have all these kids that watched horror movies like us. So what are you scared of? You're scared of a person, a friend of yours, maybe, that's going to go nuts and start killing people, or your neighbor that's going to go nuts and start killing people, someone you talk to, So Ghostface is a product of its time. That's kind of what I mean. What we're scared of in 2020, maybe a poor example, but what we're scared of in 2020 is not something that we might have been scared of in 1990. So times change. That's why you have killers and movies change. But you're still going to have the nostalgia of the classics, which is why we're getting, Halloween Kills, Halloween 2018, why we're going to eventually get another Friday movie. We're going to get another Nightmare on Elm Street movie because it's big business, because there's people like us, that get on YouTube or Twitter or whatever and want to talk about it and want to read about it. So we're always going to get these classic killers, just like we had Frankenstein and Wolfman and, Swamp Thing and all that shit earlier. It's all a cycle. It's cyclical. So to answer your original question, I like Ghostface. I don't love him, but I like him. Ben Meeker says, are they bringing back too many characters for Halloween Kills? Yes, I think they are. I think, look, I'm excited for all the characters they're bringing back, but it worries me. Because how much time are we going to have to spend getting up to speed on what's been happening with these characters? How many of them have PTSD from the Nights of 78? How many of them do we need to see in the flashback have a run-in with the Shape? How many of them do we need to see kept in touch? Every time that we have to get into some of the backstory for some of these characters they're bringing back is time that we are spent away from what is going on. Yet, if they don't let us know what these characters have been up to, then the character development for those characters is shit. And I'm not going to care when that character dies. So it's kind of a juggling act. So, yes, I think they are bringing back too many characters for Halloween Kills. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they can balance it. I know it'll probably not be a 90-minute movie. It'll probably be closer to 2 hours. I hope it's not any longer than that. But yeah, that's a good question, Ben. I think they are. What do you guys think? Do you think they're bringing back too many characters? Is it just right? Can you not because some of these characters, when I heard they were announced, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, geez, him too, her too. It's crazy. So yeah, I think they are. We'll see how they manage it. It's all going to be in execution. Jake Blaster Production says, I think, yes, they're bringing back too many characters. Not enough. Man, we're on the same page here, Mike. They are bringing back too many characters. Not enough screen time for everybody. It's a good point, Sheriff. We can only hope for the best. Wow. Perfectly said there, Mike. I agree. Let's see here. Greg Shepard says, I like Tina in H5. She was annoying, but she saved Jamie and Billy's life. Yeah, Greg, I didn't like her, but I kind of mentioned earlier, there are people that like her. I'm not one of them. And it's nothing against Wendy Kaplan, but I just found her unlikable. However, like you said, she did basically sacrifice herself to save Jamie and Billy. So we should give her a tiny round of applause for that. But yeah, so you're right there. She sacrificed herself. For me, I guess what bothers me about her sacrificing herself to save Jamie and Billy there is that it wasn't Rachel sacrificing herself, you know, and that's technically not Tina's fault. I get that. But for me, I would rather see that arc with Rachel. And Rachel died a pointless death after everything she was through. She should have, I'm not saying don't kill Rachel. I'm not one of those people. I think it's great that they wanted to show that, we're up in the ante here. But she should have sacrificed herself saving Jamie. That's just my opinion. But yeah, if you like Tina, that's fine, man. We all like what we like. Let's see here. Back to the Crypt says, who do you think is more evil, Michael or Freddy? Man, I guess it depends on what you'd mean by evil. I mean, technically, Loomis has said before, Michael is evil on two legs. I looked in, that boy's eyes are not, it's evil. He's evil. The blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. So in that respect, it's Michael is the textbook definition of evil. He's got no conscience, no remorse. He's just killing. However, I think Freddy's probably Freddy's obviously fucking evil too. The guy's a child murderer. Before he turned into the Freddy that we know, he was killing children and probably doing more than that with them. I would almost say Freddy's a little bit more evil if you want to measure it, just because Freddy is consciously knowing what he is doing. Michael doesn't have a conscience. Freddy does. And because Freddy does, he knows that what he is doing is wrong, but he does it anyway. So for me, Freddy is a little bit more evil in that respect than Michael. But if you look at just the definition of, evil being nothing but evil, then it'd probably be Michael. Interesting question. Hey, Keith V says, when I first saw H18, I was highly disappointed, but I have grown to love it. Love H18 mask. JJC as Myers, James Courtney as Myers, but can't get over Dr. Sartain putting the mask on in that twist. Wish there was more stalking scenes too. So I agree with you about the stalking. As far as Sartain, yeah. At first when Sartain was introduced, I was like, okay, that's cool. We have a new doctor. He's probably going to be a little different than Loomis, which obviously he was. But yeah, that twist was it's like they were writing the movie and they wrote everything about the movie, except they got to a part where, how do we get Michael to Jamie? Or to Laurie, sorry, Jamie Lee Curtis. How do we get Michael to Laurie? It's like David Gordon Green and Danny McBride are sitting around one night thinking, and probably hitting a bong, and all of a sudden, hey, what if we have Dr. Sartain, kill Hawkins. I know Hawkins isn't dead, but kill Hawkins, and then say he wants to see Michael in his natural habitat against Laurie Strode. That'd be pretty cool, huh? Like, come on, just fucking ridiculous. For everything they did right, and like I said, they did a lot of things right. As much as I have issues with Halloween 2018, and I do, look at the movies we're talking about now. Halloween 6, all the issues. Halloween 5, all the issues. H2O, which I hate with a passion. Resurrection, the zombie reboots. Halloween 2018 is way better than all of those. So for me, I 100% agree with you. All right. Francine Vernon. Hi, Francine says, who was the worst Michael Myers ever? Worst Myers ever. Good question. Off the top of my head, would probably say Chris Durand from Halloween 2018. And the reason I say that is there's a few scenes where he was almost like trying to channel some of the old Myers. It was just so goddamn awful that I couldn't believe it. You know, his stance in some of the scenes, which sounds dumb, his stance, he's got his legs spread in a weird way. Horrible. He has the sit-up at the end of the movie, which I don't know if he was trying to emulate the sit-up at the end of 2018. Awful. If you want to see the sit-up, Jake Blaster Productions, who's in the chat, go to his channel. He has a side-by-side view, I believe, right, Mike? He has a side-by-side view of the two sit-ups and what is wrong with them. So just off the top of my head, it's probably Chris Durand. As much as I don't like Halloween Resurrection, I thought Brad Loree was serviceable. So he was serviceable, but Chris Durand in H2O was just bad. I did not believe that was the same character. So yeah. Jake Blaster Productions says, I hope they focus more on telling a good story in Kills and less on fan service. They should only do flashbacks and callbacks to H78. I agree with you 100% there. Will they? I don't know. I still think there's going to be a lot of fan service. I still think there's going to be a lot of unnecessary humor. The flashback, we've talked about this ad nauseum. It worries me. It really worries me. But if they knock it out of the park, more power to them. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now. But yeah, telling a good story. It'll be interesting to see what story they want to tell. Is it just going to be Michael on a rampage with fan service sprinkled in? Maybe it will be. Who knows? But if they got a good story to tell and setting up Halloween Ends, remember, they have to set up another sequel, which we all think for the most part is going to take place on the same night as 2018 and Kills. So what are they going to do to set up that movie? Because Halloween Ends cannot just be more of Halloween Kills till we decide to end this trilogy or quadrilogy. So they have to kind of balance a tricky slope here. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do. All right, a couple more minutes, guys. Let's see. Keith V says, hated H2O was like Dawson's Creek meets Myers in After School Special. You're right. Agreed, Duran was the worst. Him sitting up was like a drunk guy at a bar getting up. Yeah. I have a friend who, back in our 20s, so we did a lot of drinking, we'll say. And back in our 20s, he got blackout drunk all the time. And so did I. But he just was on another level. And, I remember some mornings or in the middle of the night, after he's been lying there basically unconscious like a zombie on his back, sometimes you just randomly sit up and it looked exactly like Duran sitting up. It's crazy. So that's a good point, Keith. All right, let's see what else we got here. We're going to go about 10 more minutes, guys. Byron Reaver says, read Halloween Night Dance. Yes, I've heard of that. Except for I don't know any details about it. So yeah, I will put that on my list to check out. If you guys suggest something to me, I know I get a lot of requests on different videos to do and different things to read. If you guys request something to me, one, thank you, because I like knowing all kinds of different things about the franchise. But two, I guess my main point here is if you guys request something to me and I don't get to it right away, don't take that personally. It's not a knock. Sometimes, life gets in the way. I have a day job, where I work 8-9 hours a day. Even when I'm working from home, like I am right now, sometimes it's tough, especially, I'm working in the same place I'm sitting right now. So sometimes I need to get the fuck out of this room when I've been sitting in here for 9 hours working. But anyway, I will make a point to try to get to everything you guys suggest. but I really appreciate you guys suggesting it. So yeah, keep the suggestions coming, and I'll do my best to get to it. But if for some reason I don't get to it right away, don't take it personally. It's not a knock. I will get to it, but sometimes certain things come up, or sometimes it's on the list and I don't get to it in time, and things like that. So yeah, so thanks for suggesting I check that out, Byron. And I will put it on my list, and I appreciate you always having all kinds of cool things for me to check out. All right, Back to the Crypt says, how would you feel if there was one more sequel taking place in 78? If the end of Halloween 2 was different. So you're saying, if I'm reading this right, basically kind of like a Halloween ends. So, well, first of all, they would have to switch the ending to Halloween 2. But let's say they did that, and Halloween 2 ended with maybe they don't shoot him maybe Laurie doesn't shoot him in 2 eyes, but her and Loomis find some way to escape Michael and get in the marshal's car and drive away with Marion, and then the night continues. Let's say that happens. How would I feel about that? I don't know. I guess I would not. It's apples and oranges, but I wouldn't like it. And the reason I say that is because I like the ending of H2, and I feel like the longer that night continued, the more likely it is that there would be things added in, shoehorned in to keep a 90-minute runtime of the night. There'd be things shoehorned in and creative decisions to prolong it that I wouldn't like. Halloween 2 continuing on the same night as Halloween 78 is genius, and it's not perfect. Obviously we have, a different portrayal of the Shape, and there's some, continuity issues with like how the Shape moves and actions like that. So I get that, but I think it's perfect as is, as far as those 2 movies go. So I wouldn't like that, just because there's more margin for error. The more movies you make, the more margin for error you have. And if you have a movie you like, and if you have a sequence you like Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, if you continue on with that on the same night, there's going to be a lot more things that you don't like. And basically my confidence in them to knock it out of the park would not be high. So yeah, great question. Jake Blaster Production says, I wouldn't mind a Halloween sequel picking up after H4. Bring back Ellie and Danielle. I am with you, my man. First of all, we know that Danielle would come back. I think there's a 99.999999 chance that Danielle Harris would be all about coming back. We know she loves this franchise. We know she was disappointed she wasn't invited back for Halloween 2018. I don't think she understands that it was retconned, but we know she'd be back. Ellie, it's a good question. I don't know what she's up to. I think last time I checked her IMDb page, she hadn't been really acting, or if she had been, she did kind of bit spots in TV shows like SVU. I'm not saying she was in SVU. I'm just saying, like every actor, it seems like, is in SVU and, as a guest star. But I think she'd probably be down to do it. I'd be definitely down to see it, especially considering we got H5. So it'd be interesting. Like, it'd be basically, they could pick it up 30 some odd years later, where Jamie killed her stepmom 30 years later. Maybe she spent 20 of those years in an institution where Rachel has been, coming to visit her. Maybe it took Rachel a long time to forgive her. Maybe Jamie has been battling with some of the evil that Michael had, but she's winning the battle, but it's still in her. I don't know. I'm not a creative person like that, but I guarantee they could come up with something interesting. So yeah, I'd definitely be down for an H4 sequel. That would be awesome. I wish I had the creative juices to think of a cool idea. But yeah, might be a good topic for a video. Mike, maybe we could collaborate on that or something like that. Yeah, okay, a couple more minutes, guys, and then I am out of here. Let's see here. Biden Weaver says the H5 score is meh. Yeah, I agree. It's hard. You know, they're always going to tweak the Halloween theme in every movie. Um, it's always going to be tweaked. It can't be the exact same as the OG. It's just the way it is. But there are much better versions of it. Halloween 2 versions, you know, with the synth and everything, I fucking love. Halloween 2018 did a great job. That whole score is awesome. You know, Halloween 4 it's okay. It's not the best, but it's better than H5, which is, you know, something that most can say. I Halloween 6, the score's 290s for me. You know, you got the jump cuts from the editing. It's just 290s. And I don't mind 90s horror movies, you know, but it's such a product of its time. You know, you take a movie in the 90s and you take a movie in the 2000s or, you know, whatever. It just seems so much more a product of its time than even like the 80s, which is very interesting. 90s it was an interesting time. You know, we were starting to get into technology. You know, we always had technology, but technology just started to become more personalized, where we all have technology on us. You know, we started to get cell phones. You know, we didn't text all the time, but yeah. So it'd be very interesting to see what kind of score H5 could have with sorry, where was I going with that? Oh, it could be very interesting to see the score for Halloween 6 if it wasn't so 90s ish. All right, guys. So that is going to be it for me tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for joining. You guys are awesome. You guys had great questions. Great everything. I really appreciate you guys participating. Like I said, I'm going to keep these up every week, at least for the rest of this month. And go from there. I'm going to keep having a video out every single day. So look for those. And thanks for watching, guys. You guys are the best. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do me a favor and do that. And once again, thanks for watching.